You woke up once again with that feeling of emptiness in your chest. Another poorly slept night, thinking about the cruel words you heard, about the humiliations you swallowed, about your dignity that was trampled by someone who should love and protect you. The narcissist didn't just break your heart, they fragmented your soul into such small pieces that you no longer know who you are. The most brutal truth about narcissistic relationships isn't that you were manipulated. It's that while you were destroying yourself mentally, trying to be enough, trying to be perfect, trying to be loved, the narcissist slept peacefully every night without a shred of remorse. Your pain was the fuel that fed the sick ego of this emotional predator. Today that changes. Today you'll discover 7 psychological tactics so destructive that every narcissist will tremble at the mere thought of being in your presence. Techniques based on revolutionary research by Dr. Sigmund Freud, the world's greatest specialist in narcissistic personality disorders, who identified exactly where these emotional predators are most vulnerable. These aren't childish games or cheap manipulation tricks. These are precise, surgical psychological weapons that attack directly at the fragile core of the narcissist's ego. And what's best, you won't have to lower yourself to their level. You won't have to scream, beg, or plead. They won't even know what hit them until it's too late. The 7th tactic is so powerful, it can literally cause complete psychological collapse of a narcissist. But before I reveal this ultimate weapon, you must understand how the sick mind of these creatures works and why your usual tactics never worked. If you're tired of being treated like an emotional doormat, if you're sick of being undervalued and humiliated, if you want to reclaim your power without becoming a monster in the process, prepare yourself for the most radical transformation of your life. You never fought a normal person. From day one, you were facing a highly specialized emotional predator, a psychological manipulation machine programmed to suck your life energy and feed on your suffering. The narcissist didn't choose you randomly. They saw certain traits in you that they could exploit. Your ability to forgive, your tendency to give second chances, your deep need for harmony, your natural compassion. These beautiful virtues that make you human were turned into weapons against you. Sigmund Freud discovered something disturbing in his research. Pathological narcissists have a fundamental neurological inability to feel true empathy. They can mimic human emotions with terrifying perfection, but inside they are completely emotionally empty shells. While you shed real tears, they were simply playing a role in a theater of manipulation. This is the heart-destroying truth. For all these years when you believed you were loved, you were actually being studied. Every weakness you shared was catalogued as a future control tool. Every moment of vulnerability you showed was archived as ammunition for the psychological attacks that were to come. The narcissist mapped your psyche like a general studies enemy terrain before battle. They know your deepest fears, your childhood traumas, your insecurity points. And they use this intimate information like poisoned daggers to wound you exactly where it hurts most. But here the story turns in your favor. Once you understand the true nature of this emotional predator, once you accept that there was never real love from their side, you stop fighting an impossible battle. You stop trying to win a heart that simply doesn't exist. This brutal acceptance is your first victory. It's the moment you stop being a victim and begin your transformation into a psychological predator. Before we move on to the destructive tactics, tell me, from which city are you watching this video? Leave it in the comments because I'm impressed by the reach of this liberating message. People from all over America are waking up to this transforming truth. Now prepare yourself, because the first tactic I'm going to teach you will make the narcissist question their own mental health. The first weapon in your psychological arsenal is something so simple it seems harmless, but is so destructive it can throw a narcissist into complete panic. Strategic, ice-cold silence. Narcissists are chemically addicted to emotional reactions. They feed on your drama, your anger, your tears, your cries of despair. Every time you react emotionally, you inject pure adrenaline into the veins of the narcissist's ego. Your pain is literally their drug. Ice-cold silence isn't just not speaking. It's such a complete lack of emotional reaction that the narcissist begins to question whether you're still human. It's looking at them with the same expression you'd use to observe a white wall. It's treating them with the same importance you'd give to an annoying insect. None. When the narcissist provokes expecting you to explode, you simply look at them for 2 seconds with a neutral expression, then return to what you were doing as if they were invisible. When they tell stories about their conquests, expecting jealousy or admiration, you respond with a monosyllabic and immediately change the subject. The genius of this tactic lies in its subtlety. You're not being rude, you're not attacking, you're not creating conflict. You've simply become emotionally unavailable, and this terrifies the narcissist because their psychological existence depends on others' reactions. Imagine the scene. The narcissist comes home ready to create their daily drama, expecting you to dance to their emotional music. But you greet them with the same energy you'd greet a pizza delivery person, politely but completely without interest. They try various provocations, but you remain in your ice-cold silence, absorbed in your own activities. The effect is devastating. The narcissist enters a state of psychological confusion that specialists call acute narcissistic hunger. They'll start doing increasingly desperate things to break your silence, but you'll remain unmoved like an iceberg. Over time, they realize they can no longer feed on you emotionally, and like any emotional parasite, they'll start looking for other feeders, gradually releasing you from their toxic claws. But warning, before they leave, they'll try one last desperate move that might be even crueler than anything you've experienced. That's when the second tactic comes into play. The second tactic attacks what Sigmund Freud identified as the narcissist's greatest terror: absolute irrelevance. This technique is so powerful, it can cause what psychologists call a deadly narcissistic wound, psychological damage from which some narcissists never fully recover. The mirror of irrelevance works by reflecting back to the narcissist exactly what they fear most: being completely unnecessary, completely replaceable, absolutely ordinary. You do this not through cruel words or direct attacks, but through actions that show your life not only continues without them, it flourishes. While the narcissist expects you to wither in their absence, expecting you to beg for their attention, you do exactly the opposite. You build a life so rich, so full of purpose and joy, that their presence becomes not just unnecessary, but an obstacle to your well-being. You develop new hobbies that bring you real satisfaction. You nurture friendships with people who truly value you. You invest in your personal and professional development. You reconnect with dreams you abandoned. And most importantly, you do all this without mentioning a word about them, as if they never existed. When people ask about the relationship, you respond with surprising naturalness. "Oh, that's in the past now. I'm focused on much more interesting things now." No drama, no anger, no resentment, just genuine indifference that destroys the narcissist's ego like acid. The real genius of this tactic lies in the fact that you're not pretending happiness to provoke them. You're actually building a better life, and this authenticity is exactly what makes this technique so destructive. The narcissist, accustomed to being the center of people's emotional universe, suddenly realizes they've become a footnote in your life story. They'll desperately try to regain their position of significance, but every attempt only reinforces their own irrelevance. Some narcissists reach the point of creating dramatic crises, inventing sudden accidents, or even faking serious illnesses in a pathetic attempt to regain their centrality in your emotional life. But you'll remain strong in your new reality, where they simply don't matter. The end result is that the narcissist faces something they've never had to confront before: the reality that they're not special, that they're not indispensable, that they're just another person in the world. For someone whose entire identity is built on false beliefs of superiority, this discovery is psychologically devastating. But prepare yourself, because when the narcissist realizes they've completely lost control over your emotions, they'll move to an even dirtier and more manipulative tactic. That's when you'll need the third weapon from your arsenal. This third tactic is particularly insidious because it uses the narcissist's own pathological need for validation against themselves. It's a form of psychological jujitsu where you use the opponent's strength to destroy them from within. Poisoned admiration consists of offering the narcissist exactly what they most crave: recognition and admiration, but in a way that subtly highlights their deepest inadequacies and insecurities. It's like giving a thirsty person a glass of salt water. It seems like what they want, but it only increases their desperate thirst. Here's how it works in practice. When the narcissist brags about an achievement, instead of ignoring or diminishing, which they expect, You respond with an apparently sincere compliment that contains a subtly poisoned edge. For example, if they brag about a promotion at work, you say, "How amazing. After such a long time trying, it finally worked out. It must be a huge relief to prove to yourself that you're capable." The validation is there, but loaded with reminders of their previous struggles and desperate need for external approval. If they show off an expensive purchase, you respond, "How nice that you can finally afford this type of luxury. I know how important these material things are for you to feel good about yourself." Again, there's validation, but poisoned with the implication that their self-esteem depends on external objects. The genius of this technique lies in the fact that the narcissist can't directly complain. After all, you're praising them. But subconsciously, every compliment resonates as a reminder of their fundamental weaknesses. It's like feeding their ego small doses of psychological arsenic. Sigmund Freud observed that pathological narcissists live in a state of constant validation hunger, but at the same time, don't trust any praise they receive. Poisoned admiration exploits exactly this internal contradiction, offering what they want in a way that makes them feel even emptier inside. Over time, the narcissist will begin to realize that their interactions with you leave them strangely unsatisfied and upset, even when you're being nice. They won't be able to identify exactly what's wrong, but they'll feel growing anxiety after each conversation. This anxiety will accumulate like a slow psychological infection, destroying their confidence from within. They'll start questioning whether their achievements are really impressive, whether their possessions really show success, whether they're really as exceptional as they believe. The end result is that the narcissist, even while receiving the validation they so seek, will feel increasingly empty and insecure. It's like you installed a virus in their psychological operating system that gradually corrupts all their self-esteem files. But warning, when the narcissist begins to realize that something is destroying their inner confidence, they may move to even more aggressive sabotage tactics. That's when you'll need to master the fourth tactic, perhaps the cruelest of all. The fourth tactic exploits the narcissist's greatest existential terror, abandonment. But this isn't dramatic abandonment with door slamming and screaming. That would still be a form of validating their importance. This is gradual abandonment, almost unnoticeable, that simulates the psychological experience of emotional death. Gradual abandonment works like progressive emotional anesthesia. You don't cut the narcissist out of your life all at once. That would give them the drama they secretly crave. Instead, you decrease your emotional and physical presence in homeopathic doses. So subtly they barely notice what's happening until it's too late. You start responding to their messages less frequently and with less enthusiasm. Where you used to respond in minutes, now it takes hours. Where you used to write paragraphs, now you send one-line responses. Where you used to use emojis and exclamation points, now you respond with the coldness of an official communication. Your conversations become gradually more and more superficial. You stop sharing intimate details of your life. You stop asking for advice. You stop seeking their opinions on important matters. Gradually, they realize they're being treated like a distant acquaintance, not like someone significant. You start canceling plans more often, always with perfectly reasonable excuses. Extra work, family commitments, other friends. It's never a direct rejection, always something more important that came up. And this is exactly the most painful blow to the narcissist's ego, constantly being postponed for more important things. When you're together physically, you're only present in body. Your mind is clearly elsewhere. You constantly check your phone, seem distracted, respond monosyllabically. It's like you're becoming an emotional ghost in your own relationship. The cruelest aspect of this tactic is that the narcissist begins to experience the same feeling their previous victims felt, the pain of loving someone who is emotionally absent. For the first time in their life, they experience what it's like to be treated as a second option, as something expendable. Some narcissists will try to regain your attention by intensifying dramatic behaviors or manipulations. Others may even fake deep personality changes. But you'll remain unmoved in your process of emotional disappearance, like a ghost gradually losing consistency until becoming completely invisible. The psychological effect of this technique is devastating because it replicates the original traumatic experience that created the narcissist, emotional abandonment in childhood. you're essentially re-traumatizing the original wound that gave birth to the narcissistic personality. Sigmund Freud documented cases where narcissists subjected to gradual abandonment developed symptoms ranging from severe depression to panic attacks, and in extreme cases, suicidal ideation. Therefore, this tactic should be used with extreme caution, and only when you're completely certain there's no possibility of reconciliation or change. But if you've reached the point where there's no turning back, where your mental health depends on ultimate distancing, then gradual abandonment can be your ticket to emotional freedom. Just make sure you're prepared for the consequences, because when the narcissist realizes they're being emotionally murdered, their reaction can be even more extreme. That's when you'll need the fifth tactic. This fifth tactic attacks directly what Sigmund Freud identified as the false grandiose personality, the carefully constructed mask the narcissist uses to deceive the world about their true nature. Public exposure is the most dangerous technique in our arsenal because it has the potential to cause permanent damage to the narcissist's psychological structure. Narcissists invest extraordinary psychic energy in maintaining an impeccable public image. They're experienced actors who play the role of successful, charismatic, and admirable people. Their entire identity depends on maintaining this collective illusion. Destroying this image is equivalent to destroying the narcissist as a person. Public exposure isn't malicious gossip or defamation. It's strategic and documented revelation of the narcissist's true nature to people who are being deceived by their performance. It's showing the world who they really are when the curtains close and the masks fall. You carefully document lies, manipulations, and abuses. You record conversations where the narcissist reveals their true personality. You gather evidence of their betrayals, their cruelty, their falseness, and then, at a strategically appropriate moment, you present this evidence to the right people. This isn't emotional revenge without boundaries. It's a surgical operation of reputation demolition. You carefully choose the audience, family, mutual friends, co-workers, anyone who has been deceived by the narcissist's false persona, and you present the evidence in a calm, factual, undeniable way. Timing is crucial. You wait for the moment when the narcissist is most vulnerable to injury, when their mask is already beginning to naturally slip, maybe after an affair that came to light, or after a public episode of anger, or when other people have already started suspecting their true nature. When done correctly, public exposure creates a devastating domino effect. One person tells two tell four, and soon the narcissist's entire social network is aware of who they really are. The mask doesn't just fall, it's publicly torn off and trampled. The psychological effect on the narcissist is similar to what specialists call social death. Their carefully constructed identity collapses like a house of cards. People who previously admired them now look at them with suspicion or disgust. Social invitations stop coming. Professional opportunities evaporate. Relationships fall apart. Some narcissists never recover from a well-executed public exposure. They may develop agoraphobia, severe depression, or even try to move to a new city where they can rebuild their false identity from scratch. It's literally a forced reset of their social existence. But warning, this is the most dangerous tactic because it can provoke extreme reactions. Publicly exposed narcissists sometimes resort to threats, professional sabotage, or even physical violence. Use this technique only when you have appropriate legal support and protection measures. Public exposure should be your nuclear option. Use only when all other tactics have failed and when you have nothing left to lose. Because once you publicly destroy a narcissist, there's no going back. It's a declaration of total war. And when the narcissist realizes their reputation has been irreversibly damaged, when they see their mask has been torn off forever, they may move to the most desperate and cruel move of all. That's when you'll need the sixth tactic, an almost impenetrable defense. We come to the sixth tactic, perhaps the most psychologically sophisticated of all, clinical detachment. This technique transforms you into a version of yourself that the narcissist simply cannot process or manipulate, someone who sees them not as a complex human being, but as an interesting specimen for study. Clinical detachment goes beyond emotional coldness. It's a mental attitude where you observe the narcissist with the same scientific distance with which an entomologist observes an insect. You don't feel anger, you don't feel sadness, you don't feel frustration. You simply observe behavioral patterns with academic curiosity. When the narcissist provokes, instead of reacting emotionally, you mentally note, "Interesting. They're using provocation tactic number 3. They must be feeling particularly insecure today." You might even comment aloud, "Fascinating how you always resort to this pattern when you feel threatened." This attitude is absolutely devastating to the narcissist because it reduces them from a complex and powerful person to a predictable set of pathological behaviors. You treat them not as an emotional equal, but as an interesting clinical case. You can start making analytical observations about their behavior in real time. "I noticed you always change the subject when someone mentions personal responsibility. That's a classic defense mechanism. So it's interesting how you have to diminish other people when you feel insecure about your own achievements." The cruelest aspect of this technique is that you simultaneously demonstrate intellectual and emotional superiority. You're not just resisting manipulations, you're diagnosing them in real time. It's like you're a doctor examining a rare disease, and they're the pathetic patient. Sigmund Freud observed that narcissists have an absolute horror of being analyzed or figured out. They invest enormous energy in maintaining the illusion of depth and complexity. When you reduce them to predictable behavioral patterns, you take away the last layer of mystery that still makes them interesting. You can even start predicting their reactions out loud. "Now you'll probably try to make me feel guilty for pointing this out," or "I imagine your next move will be trying to triangulate with someone else to make me jealous." When your predictions come true, you simply nod with the smile of someone who hit an obvious diagnosis. Clinical detachment transforms every interaction into a demonstration of your psychological superiority. You're not just immune to manipulations, you understand them better than the narcissists themselves. You see the machine from the inside, while they still believe they're a magician. Some narcissists, when confronted with this attitude, fall into psychological breakdown. They simply can't process being treated like objects of study instead of intimidating or fascinating people. It's like their psychological existence has been negated at the most fundamental level. Others may desperately try to escape your analysis, cutting contact or drastically changing behavior. But the damage is already done. They know you've seen them completely, that you've decoded all their tricks, that they no longer have any mystery or power over you. But prepare yourself, because when the narcissist realizes they've been completely unmasked and analyzed, when they know they no longer have any psychological power over you, they may move to the most desperate move of all. That's when you'll need the 7th and most destructive tactic. We come to the final tactic, the most powerful and psychologically destructive of all, the mirror of mortality. This technique attacks the narcissist's deepest existential wound, awareness of their own cosmic insignificance and inevitable mortality. Narcissists live in a grandiose illusion of permanence and importance. They secretly believe they're too exceptional to die, too important to be forgotten, too elevated to be just another ordinary human facing death. The mirror of mortality shatters this illusion in a brutal and irreversible way. This tactic consists of forcing the narcissist to confront their own insignificance in the cosmos. You do this not through direct attacks, but through seemingly casual philosophical observations about the transient nature of human existence. When the narcissist brags about their achievements, you respond with reflections on how everything is temporary. Interesting how people are so proud of things that will be completely irrelevant in 100 years. When they try to impress with status or possessions, you comment, "Sometimes I think about how we'll all just be dust in the end, regardless of what we manage to accumulate." You can make observations about cemeteries. "I passed by an old cemetery today and thought about how all those people probably thought they were very important when they were alive. Now no one even remembers their names." Or about legacy. Funny how people try so hard to be remembered, but in reality, after a few generations, even the most famous people become just footnotes in history. The cruelest aspect of this technique is that you force the narcissist to confront the existential reality their whole life has tried to avoid, that they are mortal, replaceable, and cosmically insignificant. Their achievements don't make them special. Their intelligence doesn't make them immortal. Their charisma won't save them from oblivion. Sigmund Freud identified that behind the grandiose narcissistic facade hides a paralyzing existential terror, fear that their life has no real meaning. The mirror of mortality forces this awareness to the surface in an unavoidable way. You can intensify this technique by talking about people who recently died. John died last week. He was so full of himself, always talking about his achievements. Now it's like he never existed. Makes you wonder what really matters, right? Each observation is a dagger thrust into the narcissist's illusion of permanence. The typical reaction is existential panic. The narcissist may develop severe death anxiety, deep depression about life's meaninglessness, or even spiritual crises where they question the purpose of their existence. Some begin having nightmares about death or develop obsessive behaviors to feel more permanent. In extreme cases, narcissists confronted with the mirror of mortality may have complete psychological breakdowns. Their entire personality structure is built on denying mortality and insignificance. When this denial is forcibly removed, the entire personality can collapse. This is the nuclear weapon of your psychological arsenal. Use only when you want to cause permanent and irreversible damage to the narcissist's psyche. It's a technique so powerful, it can literally break a person's mind. Therefore, use only in extreme cases where your own mental health depends on complete neutralization of the narcissist. But remember, with great power comes great responsibility. These tactics can destroy lives. Use them wisely. Use them only in justified psychological self-defense, and always be aware of potential consequences. Now, in the final summary, I'll give you key guidelines on when and how to implement these psychological weapons. Now you possess 7 psychological weapons that can dismantle any narcissist. But before you implement them, there are final truths you must understand about this journey of personal transformation. First, recognize that using these tactics will permanently change you. You cannot learn to neutralize emotional predators and remain the same innocent person who was initially hurt. You'll become someone stronger, more perceptive, more cautious, but also potentially colder and more calculating. Second, understand that these techniques are not games or entertainment. They can cause severe and permanent psychological damage. Use them only when your mental health, physical safety, or emotional well-being are truly threatened. Don't use them for petty revenge or wounded ego. Third, remember that the ultimate goal is not destroying the narcissist, but freeing yourself from their control over your emotional life. Sometimes, simply leaving and rebuilding life away from this toxicity is healthier than engaging in psychological warfare. Fourth, be prepared for consequences. Wounded narcissists can become dangerous. They may resort to professional sabotage, defamation, manipulation of shared children, or even physical violence. Always have a safety plan and legal support if necessary. Fifth, don't become the monster you're fighting. The greatest danger of these techniques is that they can awaken narcissistic tendencies in yourself. Constantly monitor your motivations and behaviors. If you notice you're starting to take pleasure in causing suffering, immediately stop and seek professional help. Sixth, use these tactics sparingly and with surgical precision. Don't apply them all at once like psychological bombardment. Choose the technique most appropriate for your specific situation and implement it gradually, always observing results. Seventh, remember that your true victory doesn't lie in destroying the narcissist, but in reclaiming your own life, dignity, and inner peace. The success of these tactics should be measured not by the devastation they cause the narcissist, but by the freedom and well-being they bring you. The road ahead won't be easy. You'll discover reserves of strength you didn't know you possessed, but you'll also face temptations to use this power destructively. The line between victim and executioner can be dangerously thin, but if you keep your moral principles intact, if you use these tools only for justified psychological self-defense, if you focus on building a better life instead of destroying someone else's, then you won't just survive the narcissist, you'll flourish beyond anything you could have imagined. You'll become someone who can no longer be manipulated, controlled, or diminished by emotional predators. Someone who recognizes signs of toxicity from the first meeting. Someone who protects not only themselves, but also others who are still defenseless. This is your ultimate metamorphosis. From defenseless victim to immortal psychological warrior. Use this power wisely. Use it for protection, for liberation, for healing, never just for destruction. Now you have the keys to your emotional freedom. What you do with them depends entirely on you. If this content brought you clarity and hope, if you're determined to use these techniques to reclaim your dignity and inner peace, leave in the comments, emotional freedom. Your words will show me that this message is reaching those who truly need it. And if you know someone trapped in a narcissist's claws, share this material. You might be offering them the key that finally opens their psychological prison. Remember, you are stronger than you imagine, more resilient than you believe, and more worthy of love and respect than any narcissist tried to convince you. This is your time to reclaim your power and your life. Thank you for your valuable attention. Until the next battle in the journey of emotional liberation.